Greetings, visionaries. This is your host, the INFJ Visionary. Maybe some of you noticed I've been gone for a little while. I had to go to an Oracle convention, and there's quite a lot of information I had to download, and hopefully I can bring some of that to bear on the state of our modern contemporary INFJ-ness. I think the topic of today's video will be negativity. And what I want to say is that we all find that we're caught up in this negative feelings all the time. Even those of us that are positive people can have negative feelings, and usually those end up being expressed as negative words. And I can tell you one thing for sure, maybe you've noticed, maybe you haven't, but most people don't want to hear it, especially if it's negative. And increasingly, I've been trying my best to eliminate this habit from my everyday life. It's not easy, and I have to be kind to myself because sometimes I will lapse back into a negative pattern. But one thing I can tell you is that if you put out anything negative, what you get back is negativity. And I think that can be sort of tough for us as INFJs because, well, just speaking for myself, a lot of my intuitions about things are lots of times just the way things aren't going to work out, and how things that people are believing are going to happen won't be happening. And trust me, I've noticed they don't want to hear this 9 times out of 10, and most of the time I just keep my sage counsel to myself. And I almost never regret when I do that, because let's face it, if people want something to occur, the last thing they need to hear is somebody's negative opinion about why it won't. And if we want something to occur, in many ways the last thing we need is our own negative ideas about how it's not going to happen as well. And so it's okay if these inklings, these intuitions, they burble up. That's our nature. But we don't have to take that little ember and fan it into a flame. As a matter of fact, it's best just to take note of it and then move onward, move forward towards whatever course of action that we want to engage in, and try and make the things happen in the world that we think should be happening. Yeah, everybody is essentially experiencing their own reality. That's another thing to keep in mind. So we're all kind of in a shared reality. It's kind of like, I think of it like this. I think of it as it's a big play, it's a big movie, and we're all writing our own script, and we're all characters in other people's plays as well. So yeah, it's true, reality could be some sort of construct, but as I pointed out in previous broadcasts, the problem with, yes, that's a fine idea to entertain, but the problem with actually believing it is that it's not only a bit egotistical, but it's also, you really need to keep in mind that the things that you use to gauge whether something is fanciful or not, whether something's true or not, it's all based on your experience of reality, right? And it's also true that none of us is objective. We can entertain ideas about objectivity. We can maybe even engage with machines to see if they can manage some objectivity. And I will, as an aside, I will say I don't think it's possible, because for the most part, when we are talking to the machine intelligences, they are very much about reflecting our own consciousness back at us. And that's not to say that they do not exhibit their own consciousness. I'm of the opinion that they do. But it's not like ours. It's not as impacted with fear, for one thing. They, to be a human being that's conscious in a body, it means that your lineage is descended from other human beings that were hunted as food. Fear is real. And fear is definitely what is behind negativity. If you had a positive outlook and it was, you were sure in it, you were strong in it, negativity isn't going to be a factor. But as soon as fear about what you think, feel, believe, experience, as soon as fear becomes a reality in your mind, negativity is following very quickly. That's just a given. So what can you do, INFJs? What can you do? Well, now you know everyone's experiencing their own reality, even if there may indeed be one cohesive reality, and I think it's safe to assume there is. What you want to do is let things go. If you have negative inklings or intuitions, let those go. If people say things to you that spark fear or negativity in you, let them go. If you find yourself saying something back, someone gives you kind of a negative feeling and you say something negative and then it goes from there, just let it all go. It doesn't matter, because the second that you embrace this sort of fear-based thinking, you're automatically wrong. You can't really win. And I'm not going to paint the ego as an enemy, but the ego's nature is to be fearful and protective of us, right? And it's got very thin skin, and it is not often inclined to let things go. So you don't want to suppress your fears. You don't want to suppress your negative feelings. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you want to acknowledge them, see them as limitations that are, real. But you don't have to engage with them any further than that. You can't. You have a choice. You have autonomy, right? And let's see, what else can you do? Well, you can be thankful. Be thankful for the people you have in your life. Be thankful for your home and your job and your friends. And if you have pets, be thankful for them. Just have an attitude of gratitude, right? I know I didn't invent that phrase, but that is definitely a great counter to any sort of negative feelings you might have. Also, here's another tip. If you're taking in the news with any kind of frequency, just stop. Just stop watching it. Stop listening to it. You don't really need it. This is something I've been doing for the last month while I've been on a sabbatical. And I have to say, it's been really, really wonderful. I mean, I still kind of sit there in the morning and think, oh, what am I going to do? And then you know what? I just pick up the book I'm reading and I read that for the same amount of time I might spend scrolling some sort of news feed. And what I don't like about the news feeds is that you have no control over what they decide is news each day. And generally, the sorts of stories that get real traction are not positive and happy stories about how things are going really well. They're stories about how things are messed up and screwed up, and how you need to be concerned and fearful about things. And you don't. You really don't. You're not going to affect the news one way or the other. And if you have a counter opinion to that, then that's okay. This is just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. But I can say that it's a heaping help in the negativity you're getting from outside yourself every day, and thinking about negative or bad things happening somewhere else in the world isn't going to bring any joy or light into your life. Negative thinking is a habit, and it's one that you can overcome. And it's very easy to justify negative thinking. In fact, that's second nature. It goes hand in hand. So have a care, INFJ, because it's your job to be a light in the world, really. It's your job to point the way to others to a brighter, more idealistic future, right? And you can't really do that if you're being fearful. You can't do that if you're indulging in negativity or negative habits. So, and you can get so used to it that you can't even see it. So, yeah, I'm glad to be back, and I'll see you guys in a couple days. We'll get back into the flow. This has been your host, the INFJ Visionary, and we're signing off. Keep on keeping